We were beasts of business. Okay, we were kings of the jungle. He was the lion, and I suppose that means I was the lioness.
By this stage, money was coming in and going out so quickly.
I don't know who the rhinoceros would have been.
Sometimes it would send me into such a state, I'd look at the spreadsheets, and it's hard to believe this now, but I would actually say, this is not ideal.
We actually had a lion statue for a while that we used to take with us to business meetings. It was made of ice, so it used to melt pretty bloody quickly. We had to get a new one. That was sort of how... Sorry, what was the actual question? It was a roller coaster. And we weren't wearing helmets.
It could be quite difficult at times to know what Milch International actually did. Like, occasionally, during a board meeting, Mr. Vortex would high-five someone, usually himself, and say, "Epic business!" But it still wasn't clear, what business they were talking about. And I was taking the minutes, so...
It had been obvious for many years that Tony was desperate to break America.
Oh my God, the guy was obsessed with the States. He used to make himself feel like he was here. He bought a gun, he started doing the accent, he'd drive on the right-hand side of the road.
One day we were having a slash over the edge of one of our buildings, and he said, £1 billion isn't cool. You know what's cool? $1 billion. I mean, that blew my mind. Never thought we could make that much money.
We saw all the headlines, of course. Tony Milch buys fourth penthouse, Milch International valued at 61 billion. And still he never got in touch. We just wanted to congratulate him, and his father did need a kidney at one point, but
1996, he wanted to build his first golf course in the Amazon rainforest. Apparently, he couldn't believe no one had done it before. Each hole was 600 yards long. When someone asked where the evicted villagers would go, he offered them rooms in his tower block on the outskirts of London, which started at £2,500 a month.
By this point, I was just answering the phone. Nearly 12 hours a day. Good morning, Milch International.
This is a warning for your CEO.
Certainly, sir. And is that personal, political or military?
This is a legitimate act of warfare by the Irish people.
Putting you through to our International Terror Department. One moment, please.
You have 35 minutes.
Please hold. Hello, Milch International.
It's escaped. I don't know how. I thought the glass was strong enough.
Is Mr. Milch expecting your call?
Oh God, it's in here with me. What have we done? Why did we teach it to hate? Tell Tony.
Please hold. Hello, Milch International.
Where is that cheating bastard? Do not tell me he's out of the office. I know he's there. He's always there. You can't tell me.
Do you have your wife or mistress identification number handy?
JP 1557634.
Thank you. One moment. I'll just put you through to our unwanted pregnancies department. Tony Milch would like you to know that your relationship is very important to him.
By this point, physically, Tony was in his prime. He didn't look a day over 30. He looked 2 years over 30. And he was 32. Women got sort of sucked towards him like he had a hoover in his pants. And he did, but apparently that was a medical thing.
He was a good-looking guy. He always had a little twinkle in his eye, his left eye. The other would be scanning the room for threats. His nose was always sniffing out potential business, and his lips, well, his lips looked as though they had just tasted success. So he sort of looked like this.
He certainly had to sleep with one eye open. But again, that was a medical thing.
Winkies, well, we've always made wieners. Winky weenies. They're bright red, like a dog's... Well, they're bright red.
Predominantly, we were farming industrial crops for, biolubricants. Some crops for cattle. Not so much food.
We got a call from someone at Milch HQ. Talked a lot about a lion statue, but eventually he got down to brass tacks.
And I said, cream? My boss says, yep. That's what Winkies wants. And I said, this is not viable land for a dairy herd. We do not have cream infrastructure, And he said, you do now. The bulls arrive on Wednesday.
Tony had never had any interest in farming. Dad took us to a farm one year and they let us stroke one of the cows. Lovely big Friesian on the nose. Tony asked the farmer which end the money came out. And when the farmer said it didn't, Tony looked the cow in the eyes and said, "What's the point of you then?"
My grandpa used to say, you can't milk a bull. When it's true, they prefer not to be milked. But with a bit of perseverance, let's just say Grandpa wasn't right about everything.
When the first truckload of milk arrived, Danny, my foreman, came to me and he said, "Ted, this milk is pink."
That was the blood.
Well, they said, "Don't bring us problems, bring us cream." We turned that pink milk into pink cream, and it tasted, well, the thing it tasted most like was meat. But apparently the CEO, Mr. Milch, he loved it.
They called it Milch's meat cream. It was going to do for food what Kimmy K did for ass.
Milch's meat cream took off. I mean, it sold. Made our wieners look like scraps of meat you'd find on the floor. I mean, they are, but we don't have time to get into that.
New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. These are all places that I have been.
And when meat cream hit China, well, let's just say he could finally put another yacht on top of his yacht. While all this was happening, of course, the Inland Revenue were becoming obsessed with Milch's affairs.
He came down to the farm once, the CEO, Mr. Milch, for a publicity stunt. They put him on one of the bulls. He held onto a rope that was attached to a helicopter. It lifted him and the bull into the sky. It was cruel because the bull was too heavy. They had to drop it from about a half a mile up. It was a miracle it survived. I did not expect it to outlive Mr. Milch.
I was looking for something, anything I could find to pin on him. It didn't seem to bother him. In fact, it turned out his mind was somewhere else entirely. You could almost see the thought process. He'd cracked the US, he'd cracked China, he'd cracked Krakow. Where was left?
He'd always said, "Mummy, I want to go to space."
It was space.
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 And I'm going to sell it.
A family of women, disguised as wasps.
Black pudding at his age?
The rocking horse just collapsed under my weight.